Hello, welcome, please come in. It's time to resume our Thief and Ninja journeys in this week's video in Final Fantasy X-2, where there are no ninjas at all, except thieves do dual-wield daggers, so in a way they've kind of just fused together the ninja and thief into a single class. That dual-wielding also means thieves get okay damage with their attacks despite their low strength score because they hit twice and get a chain bonus on basic attacks. Stealing can also get a lot of nice consumables and accessories. The big downside is that thieves have pretty poor stats across the board, and their ability access is pretty one-note. So many different ways to steal things, but no actual damage options. Prologue completed and party assembled, and it's time to hack an infinite thief dress spheres, just like I did for the alchemist run I did a few months back. This will let me take advantage of the garment grid abilities while still being thieves the entire time. Unfortunately, this won't actually be super useful for most of the game because thieves have really bad stats. On to Mount Gagazet and the first proper mission where the entire party is actually thieves. I do have some accessories that I stole from LeBlanc & Co. How useful are these actually? Not very. Okay, into the first proper thief fight, let's see how this goes. And the answer is not super great. Stealing all the stealables is obviously faster than normal, but when it comes time to actually deal damage, things get a bit more complicated. Thieves are incredibly poor damage dealers. And while I do have some consumable items, they don't actually deal that much damage either. I mean, I win the fight, but I am not looking forward to making that damage work in harder battles. Wow, this one bomb enemy is taking forever. I was really hoping this playthrough would be faster than Alchemist thanks to better damage output. That does not appear to be the case. Now I just also don't have any decent healing except through consumables, which I do have more of thanks to steal, but still. At least the steal rates in this game have the courtesy to be high. Seriously, stealing works almost every single time. It's wild. It took Square 10 entries to get to this point. Okay, it's boss time. First, let's steal a remedy and some gil. Now it's time to see how much... Wow, that damage is bad. Oh, good. This boss can also inflict stop. Great, love that. Oh, well, I can cast Thunder thanks to a yellow ring on Yuna. It's actually not much better than basic attacks. Alright, let's just spam attacks to win the fight. Oof, this is going to be a rough playthrough. Whatever next class I play this game with is going to have high damage output. I really need this to not be this slow again. Back on the Celsius, and the next missions I need to do are in Besaid and Xanarchind. But let's do some side stuff first to get that out of the way. First, it's down to Kilika. Nothing exciting here, but there are plenty of treasure chests all over the place. Then it's over to Luca for a balloon handing out minigame, I guess. Tedious? Yes, but it also gives the healing wind garment grid, which gives characters access to curative magic. Thieves don't have a very good magic stat, and they have low MP, but they also have low HP, so a basic cure spell can still do pretty good work in the early stages. Oh, I can also grab the Thunderspawn garment grid from the docks. This absorbs lightning and gives lightning access. Marginal bonus. And on to the Mihen High Road, where I'm honestly just going to do some random encounters to get some experience and learn abilities. Not that many of the thief abilities are actually good. That done, I can actually explore the high road more assured that I'm not going to die because of a bad random encounter. And there are a lot of treasures on this very long highway that I must run down, and these chests respawn every chapter and are mostly filled with unremarkable items. Honestly, that may be one of the big issues about this game, is you really should visit every area in every chapter to pick up items, but unless there is actually a story event, it's really tedious to do so. Reaching the end of the high road gets me to Mushroom Rock Road, which has an event that is really just run to the end of Mushroom Rock fighting enemies, which is shockingly not that interesting. There is a brief detour to grab a Crimson Sphere, though I'm not actually sure why I bothered. I am not going to get all of these in this playthrough. Anyway, completing that does get the Heart of Flame grid, which is nice. And it's over to Jose, where I will be doing nothing. For now. I could get certified to dig at Beaconell, but I'll just do that in Chapter 2 when the story requires it. Then over to the Moonflow to defend this cart of briefcases from bandits. At least I can steal budget grenades from these bandits. I mean, budget grenades are already too weak to be usable, but, next up is Guado Salam, which can be skipped to reach the Thunder Plains, which can also be skipped. There really isn't that much to do in most of these places. In Macalania, I can run over to the travel agency to recruit Owaka onto the airship. If I pay off his debt, he will open up a great shop in Chapter 5. I will do that, but the shop is actually not that useful to me, so I really shouldn't have bothered. Okay, none of the other areas in the game have anything useful to me, so it's finally time to do some story stuff, which means heading back to Besaid. which basically just means running around, gathering cipher clues, forgetting where the last one is, and plugging in random numbers until the 4-digit code matches. There is a sphere in this cave we want, but getting it means fighting a boss, the Flame Dragon. As you might expect, a dragon that can shoot fire, which deals pretty big damage to the whole party. Pain can cast Bio thanks to her garment grid, and the rest of the party can throw out attacks and bring it down. Not too bad of a fight, though it was slower than I'd hoped. Oh well, only up from here, right? And the game crashed. Thank you very much, autosave. And that means there is one more mission left to do to complete Chapter 1, and that is over in Xanarchind, where I can chat with Isaru before heading deeper into the dome. The enemies here are a little tougher than in Besaid, just, you know, a little tougher. Like, run away before I die tougher, so this is going great. So we're going to focus on the easy fights, specifically all these LeBlanc goons, because yeah, the difficult encounters here are a bit more difficult than I can manage. And that is not a great sign for what is to come, but it'll be fine. It'll even out. Oh god, that ice elemental went oversold. Oh lord, this is bad. Everything is bad now. At the end of the dome, I get to have another chat with Isaru, who gives me another garment grid. This will give me access to cure and life magic. How exciting. It's definitely not worthless. More running through the area, and it's on to the next boss, Guardian Beast, who has some very nice skill and stealable. It's also weak to fire damage, so thanks to some quick dress sphere changes in the Heart of Flame garment grid, I can cast Firaga for big damage. Once, because then I run out of MP. Meanwhile, Yuna is doing her absolute best to keep the party alive with cure. Okay, I did not need a rain of lasers at this time, and Riku, can you please stop dying repeatedly? Okay, boss down, but that was a complete mess. My damage thanks to garment grids wasn't actually awful, the biggest issue is just surviving. Thieves are very fragile, and I can't acquire high potions yet, so I'm stuck with potions and basic cure spells, both of which are bad. Xanarchind done, it's time to hop back over to Kilika for the final story beat of Chapter 1. The Youth League and New Yevon are stuck in a bit of a spat over a cool new sphere. I do love that in FF10 spheres were just a thing that existed, but in 10.2 they have gotten elevated to the most important thing in the universe. It's really very funny. Anyway, chasing that lead through the Kilika Woods to right before the temple to face off against the next boss, the YSLS-0, a big mech that hits pretty hard and can deal big damage with attacks that delay the character's turn order, which is real rough. Good news is that I do have some high potions from treasure chests and stealing, combined with Yuna spamming cure to add some healing to the party, and the mech goes down without too much issue. This gets us the sphere we wanted and concludes Chapter 1. And first on the menu is to head to the cabin to buy high potions, because one benefit of letting Owaka on the ship is he sells high potions a bit early, which is great because I need that extra healing, and high potions heal 1000 HP in this game, which is also great. Then it's time to immediately give back the sphere I just stole 5 minutes ago. I think I'll give it to New Yevon. It doesn't make any real difference in the game, and I gave the sphere to the Youth League in my last playthrough, so fair is fair. And LeBlanc has stolen our stuff, which means it is time once again to do some random nonsense instead of continuing the story plot so I can get a bunch of random items around Spirra. Yay! First on the list is Besaid. No real story here, just respawn treasure chests to loot. There is the Gunner's Gauntlet, but that takes a while, and I don't want to. So it's over to Kilika to grab a single treasure chest because everyone here is mad at me. Then over to Luca to loot some more treasure chests, and onto the Mihan High Road to loot some treasure chests. You see what I mean? This game just has a lot of nothing to slog through. Oh wait, there's actually a quest to do here? Weird. Anyway, time to chase down a chocobo in an incredibly obnoxious minigame. So much fun. Actually, why am I doing this side quest? Oh, I guess it unlocks a boss fight against the chocobo eater? Maybe that's why? The fight itself doesn't really have anything interesting to it. The boss hits pretty hard, so Yuna has to focus on using her increasingly irrelevant cure magic to try and keep everyone's health topped off, which does work, and I get a garment grid. Not a particularly useful one though, but over to Mushroom Rock Road, and another area where everyone is angry at me for giving the sphere to New Yevon. This again is just running to the end of Mushroom Rock, but the soldiers have high potions and grenades to steal. Grenades are fine, but high potions heal a good chunk of HP, so I'll take it. There's even something approaching a boss fight at the end against whoever this is. But other than taking a while to finally steal 2 Mega Phoenixes? Alright. Anyway, other than that, the fight is not that difficult. And that concludes this run through Mushroom Rock Road. Next I'll head to Guado Salam. This guy sells information that I can then sell to someone else in the city to get a bunch of money, but the amount varies from 10,000 to 100,000. I obviously want the most money possible, It does take a few restarts, but I get information worth 60,000, and that's honestly good enough for me. Gonna skip the Thunder Plains because there is nothing interesting there, and it's back to Macalania Woods. And it's time to assemble some instrument people? I don't actually remember why I need to do this. And the game crashed again. Why does the game keep crashing? Anyway, completing this mission gets me garbage, actually. Haste Bangle is not useful at all. But chatting with this Hypello gets me the Minerva Plate. Huge boost to magic efficacy. It does mean the character won't get experience, but that boost to magic may end up being essential. Back up on the Celsius, and it's time to spend a bunch of money, because I really do want to pay off Awaka's debt. To unlock a shop I will not use, which is a waste of time, but sadly I don't know that yet. So let's head over to Bavel to do nothing important. Over in Xanarchind, it is time to chat with some monkeys to get them to fall in love with each other, because the plan is to end up with so many monkeys that tourists can't visit Xanarchind, which is an interesting plan. I feel like you've solved your over-tourism problem by disrupting the local ecosystem, but whatever. All of that was to get the Soul of the Massa, which increases spell power at the cost of higher MP costs. Given my limited access to magic and low magic stats across the board, this may make magic more useful for longer than it otherwise would be. Hopefully. I guess we'll see. Time to actually do some story stuff, and that starts in Mushroom Rock, where we can chase down a LeBlanc goon and get into a boss fight with Ormi and Logos. First up is to take out the random goon that joins them just to keep it simple, then steal items from both Ormi and Logos. The magic booster means Cure is healing about 500 HP, which isn't as good as a high potion, but it is free, and is more than enough healing to keep the party alive while I beat up Ormi and Logos. That healing would be even stronger if I had equipped the Minerva Plate, but I do want to be getting experience. One uniform acquired, so it's back to Jose Temple to get permission to dig at Beaconell, then over to Beaconell to head to the Oasis, because I have no intention of actually doing any digging. And that of course means it's time to steal another uniform. And this fight is just against Logos and 2 goons. So take out the goons first, and then it's just Logos. Elixir is pretty nice. The fight is otherwise uninteresting, especially considering the last fight had another enemy to deal with. Seriously, why did they choose to have you fight random combinations of Orbi and Logos instead of something interesting? Second uniform acquired, and it's time for Mount Gagazette. And running around until I remember where I'm actually supposed to go. No idea why I always get so turned around here. Climbing to the top means another boss fight against Ormi and or Logos. In this case, it's just Ormi, who is even less intimidating than normal when he is alone. But that means I have 3 uniforms, so I can properly sneak into LeBlanc's HQ. Which is very easy because they seemingly have absolutely no security. Give LeBlanc a massage, and it's time to sneak into the back area of her headquarters. And that means it's time for the only Ormi fight that is actually interesting. And that is because he uses his strongest attack, Huggles, which can actually deal enough single target damage to be pretty frightening, which is weird. Why doesn't he use this in other fights? Is he embarrassed? He probably should be. Anyway, I can grab the gold hairpin for my massage talents, which halves MP costs. This should be very useful in keeping my magic healing up to par, at least for a while. And now it's another Ormi and Logos fight. As I said earlier, Ormi doesn't use Huggles, so the fight is actually easier, mostly. Although Logos does like to use Russian roulette to petrify or one-hit kill party members, so that is at least fairly interesting. More Chateau LeBlanc to get through, and it's time for the next boss fight, which is LeBlanc, Ormi, and Logos, for thankfully the last time. They do get a fun new team-up attack, which is something, and actually it's probably time to start using some consumables. Protect should help mitigate the damage in this fight, and L-bombs and grenades can deal pretty decent damage to all 3 of them. The fight calms down considerably once Ormi drops, Logos follows shortly after, and I can really just spam basic attacks to drop LeBlanc. Finally, I don't have to deal with these 3 idiots ever again. The sphere itself shows a big machina that is going to threaten Spirra, so next mission on the list is to head to Bavel and deal with this problem. The Cloister of Trials. Memories. Not particularly great memories, I recall this cloister being fairly obnoxious, but memories. It's an improvement here because I can just run through it beating up monsters as I go. The Chamber of Faith has become just a big hole, so it's time to jump down into a secret underground facility, and getting through this area is probably my least favorite part of the game, because you basically just have to run around activating these doors. And each door means a fight, and they aren't boss difficulty, but they are harder than more random encounters. And it just takes so long to do anything. Yuna, will you please get up? Good lord. Okay, skipping all that boring nonsense, it's boss time against the Precept Guard, which loves to use Demi to deal percentage damage to the entire party. I can mitigate it a lot by throwing out a Lunar Curtain to cast Shell on the entire party, and Demi is really its only scary attack. So it's really just basic attack spam to win the fight. Alright, that was easy. Now, there is a whole thing here where you can do like 20 more door fights to rotate platforms to access a lower level to get a ribbon, and ribbons are very good, but I think I'm just gonna come back later. This whole area is accessible in later chapters, and if I come back once I've gotten more levels, it will be less tedious to do. Still tedious, mind you, but less tedious. Alright, time for another boss fight against Spirra, who is no joke. He attacks pretty quickly, can hit the entire party for decent physical damage or gravity damage, and is generally just a menace. So first on the list is to use a curtain to give the entire party protect, then Yuna and Riku split healing duties with cure and high potions respectively. That frees up Pain to just go wild and attack as much as possible. All that combined is enough to bring down Baralai, but that was more difficult than normal, so that was something. Next up is Dark Bahamut, who doesn't have that many attacks, but can attack fairly quickly. So first up is to cast Protect and Shell on the entire party. Impulse deals percentage damage to the party, and unlike alchemists, thieves can't pull infinite mega potions out of their butts. The good thing is that Protect and Shell combined drop all of Bahamut's other attacks down to basically no damage, so Bahamut ends up being not particularly threatening. The real problem is I just don't have any way to deal decent damage, and Bahamut's health bar is pretty chunky. I win the fight, but it is not a quick one, and that brings Chapter 2 to a close. And things are going wonky with fiends all over the place. And I finally paid off Awaka's debt, so he bails from the ship. Naturally, the only way to proceed at this point is to hop down to Luca for some competitive math, because it is time for a Sphere Break tournament. And I have a couple things I want to get here. First, I easily destroy this person at this game, because what even is a quota of 20? It may as well be 0. Next up, I play this random man, who is identically easy, also with a quota of 20. And finally, I can play this woman's dog, I guess? This is the first game with some stakes to it, because I want to be sure to make a combo with an item coin to get the white signet garment grid, which I actually don't think is useful, but I may as well, since actually hitting the quota of 40 is very easy, and that brings me to the champion, Shinra. Here, I need to score an item coin to get the only thing I actually care about, the treasure hunter garment grid. Mug isn't essential since I do have steal, but it's better to be able to steal and attack at the same time. That done, I can easily hit the quota in 6 rounds. That's actually better than my normal. Nice. Over to Mihen High Road, where some rampaging Machina are causing trouble, so I need to beat them up. This isn't actually difficult, just kind of time-consuming. I do get a lot of mugging though, which is fine, I guess. It's also easy to experience. Over in Macalania, I need to beat up a lot of fiends. This will free up the travel agency here so Awaka can open his shop, but this is actually not going particularly great. These enemies are dealing really chunky damage. At least I'm fully stocked up on healing items. Or at least I was before the fight. Good lord, I have no idea how I'm going to maintain my health in the endgame fights. That is a later problem though. And I think it's time to head back to Bavel. I've gained a good number of levels, and the stupid fights in this underground area are way less tedious. I mean, again, they're still tedious, but considerably less so. All this work unlocks a ribbon for some very useful status immunity. Okay, next up is to do the Calmlands Quest, which means saving everyone in this cave. All of these idiots have different opinions about how they should be rescued, but I just grab them randomly because I don't care about their problems. And completing that, mostly, means it's time for another boss fight, Yojimbo, and this fight is complicated, so let's throw out some curtains for haste and protect. Daigoro deals decent damage with attacks, Yojimbo can inflict poison, which doesn't deal a ton of damage, but can be a big problem, and of course Zanmato, which reduces the entire party to 1 HP and MP. Despite Zanmato being theoretically scary, it's actually not that dangerous. I can basically just make sure to be ready to throw out high potions at a moment's notice to try and keep everyone at high HP. It doesn't always work, but it works enough to win the fight. Does take a really long time though. Gagazet is next on my Chapter 3 list, though honestly I'm not really sure why. I don't actually think there's anything here I care about. Oh well, it's another boss fight, so another chance to get some experience, though the next fight is not a quick one. Slow has been the running theme throughout this entire playthrough actually. Garrick is joined by 2 other Ronso. They aren't super durable, but they do have the ability to cast defensive buffs, which I don't appreciate. This is going to take a while as is. I have basically infinite high potions at this point, which thankfully are still healing a decent chunk of HP, but boy, my damage is just awful. Also, what is the steal rate on Garrick? All that for an icy gleam? Okay, that definitely wasn't worth it. And now the blind. Okay, sir, I'm barely dealing double-digit damage. Might be time for some consumables. That's better, a bit. Oh lord, this fight is going to take a while. I definitely just shouldn't have bothered. Oh well, and then the game crashed. Okay, let's do it all over again. Okay, time to do some more of the actual story, and that means returning to Besaid to deal with the fiend problem here. And that means dealing with the next boss on the list, Valefor. First, steal some healing springs and money, we love that. Then it's time to spam attacks. My damage in this fight is better now that I've equipped Pain with better damage boosting accessories. Valefor's Energy Ray and Energy Burst are no joke though. But boosted cure spells and some high potions are enough to keep me alive. So, not bad, that's another boss down. Back to Killikan, it's time to get some help to sneak through the blockade, into the forest, and over to the temple to deal with the next boss on my... Oh, I'm dead? Those enemies are harder than any boss in this game, apparently. Let's just Charm Bracer these encounters away. Which means I can just run to the next boss, Ifrit, who is basically the same type of scary as Valefor, except here it's Meteor Strike and all targeting Viraga. I think I need to throw out a curtain for Shell on this one, and just in time to block most of a Hellfire, which didn't look that much more damaging than just Viraga. I guess it was. I really don't have any interesting offensive options, so I guess I will just spam attacks and heal up for the rest of the fight. And that does indeed win the day. Okay, that is another Dark Aeon dealt with. But the Aeon nonsense isn't done yet, so it's time to pop over to Jose Temple to deal with my next threat, Ixion. Basic attacks are dealing okay damage, but Ixion has threats of its own. Aerospark deals pretty big damage, Ixion will heal itself, albeit not for very much, and of course the strongest attack deals very hefty damage to the entire party. I think this is actually the most damaging of any of the Aeons I've fought thus far. This fight is really just a struggle to constantly keep my party healed up, but also get any attacks in. And Ixion really doesn't make it easy to do, but I managed to win the fight. Eventually. I need to stop saying eventually, you get it by now, these fights are slow. Then a big explosion and Yuna falls down a big hole. Fortunately, fall damage doesn't exist in Spirra, so it's fine. Time to get back to the Celsius. And that is actually the end of Chapter 3. So let's loot the Celsius engine room and it's time to start planning a concert. Which first starts with very slow, very boring conversations throughout some of the spheres around Spirra. God, Chapter 4 of this game is just not good, is it? Okay, back down to Moonflow to chase down this little jerk, which is just a very long experience of running back and forth over and over. And next up is a minigame that I don't understand. I basically just spam buttons and hope it works out. And it does. Smooth Sailing gives the Super Ribbon ability, but also inflicts slow on the equipped character. I will need an auto haste accessory to make that usable, but that is gonna have to wait a bit. The concert is in the Thunder Plains, but before the concert can get started, I have another fiend problem to deal with. The Salamander is a big dragon that breathes fire. It also attacks very slowly for some reason, but when it hits, it does indeed hit. And, so this is not going great. I did not realize this boss could hit like a truck. So, the whole middle of this fight is really just going to be trying to keep my party healed up while doing no actual damage, huh? Oh, you can blind the Salamander? Have a Dark Grenade. It still hits for chunky damage with Tail Sweep and Fire Breath, but the basic attacks in are mostly handled. That is a lot more breathing room to actually attack, and that is Salamander dead. Which means the only thing left for this chapter is the concert itself. Excuse me? Game? Are you having a problem? To be clear, the audio is playing as normal, the subtitles are correct, it just seems that this emotional music sequence is going to be just green. And that is Chapter 4 done. And that means only one chapter left to go, and there is not actually that much optional stuff I need or even want to do. First is to swing by Besaid because Lulu and Waka's baby has been born. This is, admittedly, not actually that important to me mechanically. I'm actually here to try and get women to want to marry some guy in the Calmlands, because that is actually the easiest way for me to get a speed bracer, which has auto haste. And that is basically how the rest of Chapter 5's optional content goes. Mostly just trying to convince random women to head to the Calmlands because I want an item. Which sounds really sketchy now that I say it out loud. Oh well, gotta get that auto haste. Next, it's over to Macalania because Owaka has opened his shop. Oh, everything here is really expensive and not that useful. Well, good to know, that is a waste of time. Fantastic. So glad to waste a lot of time on that. As per normal. Maybe someday I'll learn. Okay, time to hop down through the underground to get through the endgame of this experience, and that means it's time for another Aeon fight. This time against Shiva. And this fight is not easy, partly because high potion healing is starting to drop off, and partly because I've skipped so much of the game, I am underleveled. Heavenly Strike deals pretty big damage and can inflict stop. Thankfully, 2 of my party are immune to stop. However, Diamond Dust can still deal a huge chunk of damage. I actually have to use a Mega Potion to heal the party. Oh, I'm probably gonna need Mega Potions to keep up with healing in this endgame boss rush. How do you easily get Mega Potions? Oh, you can't. All the ways to get Mega Potions suck. That's kind of a problem. So, anyway, back to the fight. I'm basically doing everything I can to keep myself healed up with high potions while Yuna spams Firaga. It's not very strong, but it's better than basic attacks, which is a bit sad. Fortunately, I do have haste and decent healing, so I'm going to keep my party alive. However, the next boss is going to be a problem, because the 3v1 advantage does not exist when it's a 3v3, especially when the enemy buffs themselves, deals pretty good damage, and attacks very quickly. It's even worse by the fact that I can't really mess around too much in this fight. If the Mega Sisters use Delta Attack, I am very much screwed. The good news is Delta Attack doesn't screw me over. Not because I stopped them from casting it, but mostly because I was never going to win this fight regardless. This is going to be a problem. To some degree, I can probably out-level the problem, but that would take a while. I mean, to some degree, any amount of levels would be useful to me, but the sheer volume of levels I would need to acquire would be unpleasant. Let's do some grinding while I try to think up an actual solution. Okay, I have a new plan, and that is to head to Bavel, because there is actually a dungeon here that I typically don't bother doing, for a variety of reasons. But in this playthrough, it's going to be essential. The Via Infinito consists of a bunch of repetitive rooms with a bunch of random encounters. These scale from the lowest possible level all the way to post-game scaling. This means fights start off very easy initially, but will get considerably harder as I go along. Except these big dragons, these will kill you regardless because you are actually supposed to avoid them. Now, I have two goals here. The first is, and the game crashed again. What is happening? I've never had this many crashes in this game, and it's been a consistent problem. So glad this game has an autosave function, otherwise I would be less pleased. Anyway, reaching floor 20, and it's time for a boss fight, which is just a reskin of the first boss. And thankfully, Yuna has access to Firaga to take advantage of its fire weakness. Yuna doesn't have a lot of MP, but Pilfer MP can help a lot with that. The rest of the party can deal pretty decent damage with attacks, but Firaga is really the best source of damage. Okay, time to run through 20 more floors to the next boss on floor 40, and that is the Black Elemental, which is a bit of a problem. Doesn't have much HP, but it does have very high physical defense and loves to cast status effects. Fortunately, only Yuna can be affected by those. The problem is that it casts Flare and Ultima. Flare will always KO one character, Ultima will always KO the entire party, making this a tricky fight to deal with. Now, this boss can be ejected from the battle via Steel Will, but the chance of it working must be comically low. So, despite several attempts to Steel Will the boss away, it only ends in defeat. Okay, time to employ a new plan. Black Elemental has a very high physical defense, but considerably lower magical defense. Now, while I can't make effective use of that fact, I can switch Riku over to the Shining Mirror Garment Grid to gain access to Reflect. This gives her access to the Reflect spell, which conveniently affects all allies. So, while the entire party tries, and fails, to eject the boss, it can blast itself with Flare until it dies. Truly, one of the victories of all time. This gives a bunch of bracers to give auto status effects and, most importantly, the Catnip accessory, which means I have my solution to my endgame healing problem. Which basically means kill the bosses before I even need to heal, and that starts when I hop back into the Mega Sisters boss fight. When a character with Catnip drops to critical health, all their attacks change to deal 9,999 damage. They tried to balance this a bit in the remaster version by having it also apply Berserk and Slow, but that does not really work. For starters, I can equip Speed Bracers to apply Auto Haste to negate the Slow, and the Berserk just means Yuna will always attack, which is what I was going to do anyway. So once Catnip triggers, this fight ends very quickly. So it's into the Anima fight, which ends before I can even do anything with anyone else. I'm not sure what possessed this game's designers to make such an obviously overpowered accessory, but I appreciate it. And in fact, Thieves are uniquely qualified to take advantage of the Catnip accessory, because their basic attack hits twice. They actually deal 19,998 damage with every attack while in critical health. Has this completely broken the combat design? Yes! On the other hand, Thieves have been a really rough challenge, and I am absolutely fine riding the Catnip high all the way to the end of the game. So let's skip over all the obnoxious piano puzzle nonsense and into the very easy series of final boss battles. The first fight is against Vegnagun's tail. All of its attacks are percentage based against the entire party, meaning it knocks Yuna into critical health immediately and she ends the fight. Next up is the leg that LeBlanc & Co. cannot possibly stand up to. Yuna starts the fight already in critical health, and that is the end of the fight. And then the game crashed again. Good lord game, why are you doing this? Last playthrough I had one crash? Now it's been 5? I mean, autosave has stopped me from losing any progress, but good lord, get it together. Anyway, next up is the main body. My party starts the fight fully healed, which means I need to take a bit of time carefully dropping Yuna's HP to critical. She can then get off a few attacks to take out the boss. And that means only one more Vegnagun segment to go. The face. The game auto-heals you between fights, so it's time for more HP manipulation. This boss can deal pretty big damage pretty quickly, so I do set up some screens to stop any stray attacks from killing me. I'm probably being overly cautious, but this playthrough has taken a while. I'd rather get this right the first time. And then it is the final fight against Shuyin, who has 3 attacks that don't matter and 1 attack that can easily one-shot anyone in the party. And he of course uses that to take out Yuna before she can beat him up. This isn't actually a problem though, because Phoenix Downs will bring her back in critical health to very quickly end the fight. And that was Final Fantasy X-2, beaten with only Thieves, and that run was interesting. All the low damage of Alchemist, but with none of the healing that made Alchemist only actually viable. I'm not even sure what would be the best way to survive that final boss gauntlet without catnip. Good thing I didn't need to. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.